Richard Crosser.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'm very pleased to rise on behalf of New Zealand First to take a call on this first reading of the Kiwibank Bill 2015. Mr Speaker, this is a good bill and New Zealand First is proud to support it. In fact, if we have one complaint, one criticism at all, and it's not about the bill itself, Mr Speaker, or about this process of lawmaking, we have no issue with that. If we have one complaint about this process, it's that this bill should not actually be necessary. It shouldn't have been necessary for Mr Cosgrove to craft this bill and to put it in the ballot and to be lucky enough to have it drawn and to bring it to the House. And we congratulate him for that, Mr Speaker, but I fear that it is necessary, and listening to government members tonight has done nothing to assuage those fears. And as Mr Robertson said when he spoke, if government members don't stand up and say unequivocally that they are going to support the bill or don't confirm that they'll be voting against it, that's pretty much as good as saying that, yep, Kiwibank is going to be on the block at some point in the medium future anyway. So it's a way of saying we don't want to entrench the New Zealand ownership, the state ownership of this bank, because we want to give ourselves the opportunity to flick it off at some point down the track, which is a reasonably safe bet, I would say, Mr Speaker. So it will surprise nobody that the free market ideologues who seem to run the National Party these days don't have any interest in safeguarding the future of New Zealand's bank in the hands of New Zealand citizens, voters and taxpayers. Mr Bennett pretty much said that of course they won't interfere in the decisions of New Zealand First Board, New Zealand Post Board, and that sums up their attitude, I think, generally to state-owned enterprises overall, Mr Speaker. They'd really rather not have them. They'd really rather that everything was actually in the hands of the private sector. They don't like the sort of socialist connotations of the state, the taxpayer through the state having ownership of what they call businesses, even if these businesses are in fact essential parts of the fabric of what makes New Zealand New Zealand. They just regard any kind of state ownership as being anathema to what it is that's the core of their way of thinking about things. And so they've come out and flagged that they will not support it. So we will be supporting it, Mr Speaker, and Labor obviously will support the bill, and the Greens have said that they will support it through to the Select Committee. As to the other support parties for the government, Mr Speaker, we don't know the mind of the Maori Party. We may not know until the vote. It's a safe bet that Mr Seymour will support it. But we don't know about Mr Dunn. He's surprised us once tonight already, and who knows, perhaps he might do that again. Mr Speaker, don't get me wrong, New Zealand First is entirely in favour of private enterprise and of private ownership of businesses. But there are times when something more than a simple pure profit motive is required. There are times when a public service is required. There are times when a public good is involved. And it's on occasions like that the state has to be involved, because only the state can be involved, and that really is where the state should be involved. And we did that for a long time, Mr Speaker. We used to own the BNZ, for example, and we used to own the Post Office Savings Bank for more than 100 years. We owned the Post Office Savings Bank, and then we owned Postbank, as it was called, and then it got flicked off in 1989 to the Australians, who now own the major slice of the New Zealand commercial banking sector, apart from, of course, Kiwibank, the Taranaki Savings Bank, Southland Building Society, one or two other little minnows. But it is curious, Mr Speaker, that the Australians own almost all of New Zealand's commercial banking sector, when in fact for a commercial trading bank to operate in Australia, it has to be majority Australian owned. That seems to be lost on this Rogernomics national government. But if we fast forward from 1989 to now, Mr Speaker, the pendulum has swung the whole way. Nationals in power. It was Labor, obviously, that were in power in 89 when Kiwibank was created. Thank you, Mr Speaker. And Mr Cosgrove has seen the light, and he has realised the value of holding this valuable asset in the hands of the taxpayer and the state. He's brought this very fine bill to the House, Mr Speaker, and we are proud to support it, and we challenge other parties to do the same. Thank you.